The group arrived at Menethil harbor, cloaked and hooded as a storm raged around them. Rain poured relentlessly, drenching their garments as flashes of lightning illuminated the dark sky. Valeera glanced around and spoke up. "So this is Menethil harbor, Logosh?" Logosh, eyes scanning the harbor, responded. "A small part of the Bronzebeard dwarves' vast kingdom." Valeera's lips twisted into a slight smirk. "Not much to look at, is it?" she muttered. "Neither are we, Valeera," Brol added dryly. Logosh's expression turned serious as he prepared them for what was to come. "Just as well. We don't want to attract any unwelcome attention until we get the lay of the land, so we'll keep our heads down and our mouths shut." As they walked, Valeera couldn't hide her distaste. "I loathe the rain," she exclaimed, irritation sharpening her voice. "And did we have to land in a blasted alliance port? They hate blood elves here." Logosh glanced over at her, calm and composed. "They hate blood elves everywhere. Keep your hood up and you'll be safe enough." Suddenly, Valeera's steps faltered, and her expression shifted to discomfort. "Everything hurts. My head, even my skin itches," she said, her voice strained. Brol looked at her with concern. "During our battle with the Naga, you absorbed an untold amount of arcane energy, Valeera. More than you're used to, even if you are a blood elf. More than was good for you. What you're feeling is withdrawal." Valeera's eyes flashed with annoyance. "I know, Brol. Don't patronize me." Brol sighed, a touch of frustration in his tone. "Hard not to sometimes," he muttered. Her annoyance deepened as she shot back. "My blood elf energy-thieving ways helped save your sanctimonious life." Brol's voice softened, trying to diffuse the tension. "I didn't say... I'm not blaming you, Valeera. I know why you did what you did, but you put yourself in grave peril. I'm worried..." Before he could finish, an old woman stepped out of the shadows, her hand extended. "Cross my palm with a copper, kind sirs, and I'll tell your fortune." Valeera cut her off sharply. "Here, I'll handle this." With a flick of her hand, she absorbed the woman's energy, leaving her screaming in pain until Valeera let go. A sly grin crept onto her face. "That's perfect." "Valeera!" Brol shouted, his voice filled with alarm. "That's not perfect, Valeera. It's giving in to your increased craving. That way lies danger and corruption." "It doesn't, Brol," Valeera interrupted, her tone defensive. "That's just night elf propaganda. Look, I know I absorbed too much arcane energy from that trident, but I had to. I needed the boost to fight through to you, and once I started, I just couldn't seem to stop. It felt... I'll just taper off, okay? Take a little less each time. What's the big deal? It's not like I'm tapping fel energy, just ordinary arcane." Before she could finish, Valeera bumped into a man stumbling out of a nearby tavern, drink in hand. He fell, his mug shattered as it hit the ground. "Hey, watch where you're... sorry, mister. Really, He stopped, eyes widening in fear as he took in Logosh's imposing face. Recognition dawned on his face, and his tone changed to one of disbelief and terror. You're supposed to be dead." Logosh's eyes narrowed, the storm around them suddenly seeming quieter as tension thickened the air. "No problem," Brol said confidently. "We'll just keep our heads down and our mouths shut." But Logosh's eyes narrowed as he watched the panicked man sprint away. "He knows something," he said, taking off after him without hesitation. As they bolted forward, Valeera's hand moved swiftly to her dagger, ready to silence the man before he could speak. But Logosh caught her arm, halting her throw. "Valeera, don't! Dead men can't talk, and I need to have a conversation with him." The group pushed on, following the man as he disappeared into a nearby tavern. Inside the dimly lit room, they could hear the man, breathless and stammering, trying to make sense of his shock. "I tell you, it was him. Alive, I swear it. Thandol was a witness. He swore he saw him drown. He must have drowned, but..." Another voice interrupted, skeptical and sharp. "You're drunk again, Slim. He drowned." Slim's voice rose in defiance. "Yeah? So how come he's standing right there?" He pointed at Logosh, who stood framed in the doorway. "Apparently, it's nice to see you all again," Logosh said, his tone cool and composed. "But I'm not looking for trouble. I just want a few answers." Trouble found them anyway. A man with an eye patch and a scarred face stepped forward, a cruel grin forming as he shouted, "Kill them!" Weapons were drawn and chaos erupted. A robed figure suddenly materialized in the room, the shimmer of magic betraying his presence. "By the pointy hats, a wizard," Valeera shouted. "Teleported when we walked in. Watch out for him. Eye Patch is a mage, powerful, quite a glow. Her warning was cut short as the mage unleashed an ice blast. Brol, watch out for... Valeera's voice faltered as Brol was encased in ice. Logash, however, showed no sign of panic. Whenever you're ready, Brol. We need to get this over with quickly. Brol? Valeera echoed, worry tightening her voice. Suddenly, cracks splintered through the ice, and with a roar, Brol shattered free, shifting into his bear form. He launched himself at the attackers, his massive paws swiping left and right, scattering the surprised patrons who hadn't anticipated the druid's shape-shifting power. Brol, the wizard! Valeera shouted, hurling her 2 daggers. One struck a man in the chest, sending him staggering back, while the other narrowly missed the mage, who yelled, "Damnation!" Logash, caught in a fight with another attacker, didn't see the mage preparing a fire spell behind him. Just as the spell was about to be unleashed, a dwarf leaped from the shadows, disrupting the mage and causing him to falter. Seizing the moment, Logash spun around and drove his blade into the mage's chest, ending the threat. The 4 warriors stood back to back, Brol still in bear form, bristling with readiness. Logash turned to the dwarf, eyes narrowed. "Thanks. Who are you?" "I'm an ambassador of sorts," the dwarf said, breathing heavily. "I was supposed to meet your party at the docks and slip away with you quietly." "And your fallback plan?" Logash asked, tightening his grip on his swords. "Help you end this fast and get out of town, with as much haste as we can manage," the dwarf replied, a grin breaking through the tension. The dwarf's brow furrowed in confusion as he glanced at Logash. "You're supposed to be in Stormwind right now, aren't you? Having been rescued from the Defias kidnappers?" he said, his voice laced with bewilderment. As the battle raged on, Valeera's eyes narrowed, locking onto the wizard preparing another spell. A small, determined smile crept onto her lips as she whispered to herself, "Ah, finally." Amid the clash of steel and shouts, the dwarf continued. "You're missing it all. The big bash Stormwind is holding in your honor. Parade? Feast? Word on the street is that Lady Prestor was extremely glad to see you." "So what are you doing here?" he asked, striking down another attacker. Valeera let her arcane craving take over, rushing the wizard before he could cast his fire spell. She began absorbing his energy, eyes glinting with a dangerous hunger. "Valeera, that's enough," Brol shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her away. "It's okay. I'm through with him anyway," she said coolly as the wizard slumped lifelessly to the floor. After the fight, Logash turned to the dwarf. "You know me. How?" "My name is Thargus Anvilmar," the dwarf began, catching his breath. "I serve King Magni Bronzebeard. You were trained by the best alliance warriors from every kingdom. One of them was my brother, Hjalmar. Few humans know dwarf combat stances. You alone had been taught the Anvilmar feint. Hjalmar said he never had a likelier pupil, even if you were human. Who else could you be? But if you're here, then who are they embracing at Stormwind?" Thargas's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Logash's gaze hardened with determination. "That's one of the many things I intend to find out." Searching through the fallen bodies, Valeera called out, "Found their boss, the one-eyed mage that Thargas clocked." The man let out a groan, arcane energy faintly radiating from him. "He's still alive," she added, almost mirroring how she felt, fatigued and strained. Brol nodded toward the man. The drunk was reporting to him. He knows something. "Bring him around," Logash ordered. Valeera picked up a drink from a nearby table and splashed it onto the unconscious man's face. His eyes fluttered open, the arcane glow beginning to fade. "Talk fast. He won't last long," Valeera said firmly. "You know who I am?" Logash questioned, his voice low and intense. The man sneered. "The worthless king of Stormwind." Logash's eyes darkened. "How do you know?" "Led the Defias, who delivered you to the ship. They said you died." The man spat, a wicked grin spreading as he added, "Paid in Stormwind gold. But he won't give up. He'll find you, kill you, in the end. Destroy your kingdom, murder your son." With a sudden surge of malice, the man's hand began to glow as he attempted to cast one final spell. Valeera's eyes widened. "Logash, look out!" she yelled as she sent a blast of energy to stop him and began to absorb what she could. "Valeera, no! You're taking too much!" Brol shouted, pulling her back. Stumbling, she swiftly drew her dagger and hurled it at the mage, ending him. Logash's eyes blazed with fury. What do you think you're doing? I wasn't finished questioning him. He was going to use the last of his magic to kill you. The pig was dying anyways. We'd learned all we could from him. I figured, why waste his energy when I could use it? We couldn't let him live in any case, Valeera said, wiping blood from her cheek. Thargus nodded grimly. The girl's right. You could have died. And if we had let him live, he'd have spread the word of your return. Logash's jaw clenched. He may have known nothing else, Thargus, but he may have known more. Now we'll never know. That wasn't your decision to make, Valeera. Have a care lest your thirst betray us in the end. As they stepped out of the tavern into the stormy night, Brol turned to Valeera ready to speak, but she cut him off. Don't you start, Brol. I'm glad he's dead. I hate people who threaten children. I'll never let Logash's son be orphaned like I was, by a worthless slug like him. The rain had finally ceased, but the sea and sky remained an angry gray, mirroring the simmering tension that hung over the narrow streets of Menethil harbor. The small party of travelers moved cautiously, seemingly deep in conversation, unaware of the malice watching from the shadows. Valeera perched atop Brol's back, the druid in his travel form, his sturdy stride carrying her steadily forward. Logash rode a strong, weathered horse, while Thargus sat tall on his ram, its hooves clattering on the cobblestones. Obviously, someone wants you dead, Logash, Thargus began, his tone blunt but concerned. And just as obviously, their failure thus far to send you to the clay will enrage them. I'm guessing they'll expect you to travel from Menethil Harbor to Ironforge by sea or air, so we'll go by land. Logash glanced over at him. The more indirect land route through the wetlands will be safer? That, Thargus admitted with a grin. And sea and air travel makes me sick. But the longer route means we'll have to hurry. As their conversation carried on, Valeera sat quietly, fighting a private battle. The craving inside her is intensifying, sharp and unrelenting. Deep in the throes of arcane withdrawal, she found any source of energy that could sate her cravings increasingly difficult to resist. The pull was constant, dangerous, and growing stronger. They came to a halt near a small vendor's stall. An old woman stepped forward, catching Valeera's eye. Her voice was enticing, her tone intriguing. I can see from your kit that you are a devotee of the dagger, young mistress. She held up a blade that gleamed faintly with an unsettling aura. This one is special, the woman continued. A fell dagger fell off a warlock's cart. For you, a mere 200 gold. The dagger glinted ominously as she handed it toward Valeera. The blood elf hesitated, her instincts conflicted. I don't, she started to say, her voice uncertain. But the moment her fingers brushed the hilt, an involuntary gasp escaped her lips. Oh, it's wonderful, she whispered, her voice trailing off, a dangerous light flashing in her eyes. The lure of the dagger was unmistakable, its power both intoxicating and perilous, threatening to pull her deeper into the struggle between her strength and her addiction. Suddenly, Brol growled and broke into a sprint, forcing Valeera to cling tightly to his neck, her grip slipping slightly as his movements jolted her. Brol, stop! Wait! She called out, her voice tinged with frustration. We need to go back. I barely touched that dagger, and now I feel much better. Behind her, Thargus groaned from atop his ram as he tried to keep up with Brol, his voice cutting through the air. If I'd wanted to fly there, I'd have taken a griffin. The road through the wetlands wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the constant rain, and the crocolisks, gnolls, murlocs, and oozes. But we should be safe for the moment, he added dryly. As Brol dashed ahead, Valeera held on for dear life, trying to keep steady as Logash and Thargus urged their mounts to keep pace. The narrow paths and swampy terrain of the wetlands stretched endlessly before them. The deeper they ventured into the wetlands, the more perilous the journey became. Without warning, a pack of raptors sprang from the underbrush, their screeches slicing through the damp air. Brol shifted seamlessly into his bear form, his claws flashing as he tore through the oncoming threat. Kale's teeth, Brol! You might have warned me, Valeera shouted, scrambling to adjust her perch as his back shifted with his transformation. Logash unsheathed his sword, cutting down raptors as they lunged, while Thargus swung his weapon with practiced ease, dispatching the remaining creatures. As the last raptor fell, Brol grumbled, his irritation evident. No one mentioned anything about raptors. Thargus wiped his weapon clean, a hint of humor in his voice. An oversight, he said. But they make good eating if you don't mind gamey meat. That's assuming, of course, that in this drizzle we can get a fire going. Later, as the group huddled around a struggling fire and cooked the raptor meat, Valeera sat apart, her arms crossed, her discomfort palpable. "You'll feel better if you eat," Brol said, his voice gentle but firm. "No, I'm not hungry," Valeera snapped, though her voice dropped to a mutter. "If I had that dagger..." Brol cut her off sharply. "That dagger will not help you. Any more exposure to fell energy will only make your cravings worse." "I know. It took me years to shake off its effects. Withdrawal from even that small taste will be difficult. There are herbs I can give you." "I don't need herbs," Valeera retorted, her tone defensive. "I can handle it. Quit badgering me, Brol. Just leave me alone." Rising abruptly, she stormed off to sit alone, though still within earshot of the others. Logash watched her retreat before glancing at Brol. "Trouble?" he asked quietly. Brol sighed deeply, his gaze lingering on Valeera. "We Night Elves use only natural and divine magic and find the use of arcane, and especially fell energy, abhorrent. But the Blood Elves see it differently. Once the Sunwell was lost, they began to drain arcane magic from alternative sources. Most of Valeera's kind have been turned to fell energy, which burns life to create magic. It is destructive and ultimately corrupting." He paused, his tone heavy with concern. "That is Valeera's legacy. She'll crave the darker forms of energy now that she's had a taste of it. Withdrawal is inevitable, and will be painful. It will be for the best if she gets through most of it out here, where there are no further temptations." Brol's gaze shifted back to Valeera, his worry clear in his eyes. She sat with her back turned, shoulders tense, trying to distance herself from her companions, but unable to escape her internal battle. The group pressed onward through the wetlands, their journey toward Ironforge fraught with tension. The air was heavy, not just from the lingering dampness of the swamp, but from a silence that felt unnatural. Logash scanned the terrain, his instincts on high alert. "Something's wrong, Thargus. It's too quiet. This is a perfect setup for an ambush." Brol, in his bear form, let out a low growl, unable to do more to express his agreement. Valeera, riding on his back, added with a smirk, "Brol agrees, though his shape limits further elaboration." Her voice softened as she muttered under her breath, "Thank the sun. I'm totally sick of his lectures." The uneasy quiet shattered as Logash's voice rang out. "Arrows incoming! Thick as rain, move it!" Thargus and Logash dove for cover, but Brol didn't hesitate. He lunged to shield Valeera, forcing her to the ground and taking the brunt of the arrows in his massive back. Above them, a voice echoed from the hill, commanding and cruel. "Surrender or die where you stand." The voice belonged to a dark iron dwarf who revealed himself with a smug grin, his group of dwarves looming ominously behind him. "Well, well, if it isn't Thargus Endvilmar. What are you doing roaming the wetlands? Let me guess. You're trying to spy for old King Magni, like your worthless brother, and just as lousy at it. We've caught Hjalmar, and we have him under torture, squealing like a girl. But you're even more in Magni's confidence, and thus a greater prize." Thargus's face twisted in rage as he stepped forward, gripping his weapon tightly. "Gunner Flintrock, you wart on Modgood's backside. Where is my brother?" Gunner sneered, his grin widening. "You'll join him soon, Endvilmar, in chains in a dark iron cell, if you live through the next few minutes." With a shout, Gunner's group of dark iron dwarves charged down the hill atop their rams. Weapons gleamed in the gray light as Thargus and Logash drew their blades, ready to meet the assault. Logash barked an order over his shoulder. "Watch over Valeera, Brol. She can't fight as she is. Thargus and I will deal with these scum." Thargus fought with ferocity, his hammer crushing into one of the dwarves. "The world is in a sorry state when cowards like you, not fit to clean the boots of an Endvilmar, would dare hold one under torture." Blood splattered across his face as he pressed his attack. Nearby, Brol stood tall on his hind legs, roaring in his bear form as he faced 4 dark iron dwarves wielding axes. Valeera stayed close behind him, her hands gripping her daggers tightly. "Don't worry, Brol, I'll guard your back, as you guard mine," she called out, trying to steady her shaking hands. But the withdrawal from the arcane energy she craved had sapped her strength and focus. Her aim was unsteady, her reaction slowed. As one of the dark irons raised an axe to throw at Brol's exposed back, Valeera reacted instinctively. She hurled her dagger, but her aim faltered. The blade missed its mark, and the dwarf's axe flew true, sinking deeply into Brol's back. "No!" Valeera gasped, horror filling her eyes as Brol let out a pained roar, stumbling under the impact. Blood soaked his fur as the battle raged on, and Valeera realized the gravity of her weakened state. The fight may have been nearly over, and the price of her struggle with withdrawal had just made it far more dangerous for all of them. The battle was swift and brutal, leaving little room for hesitation or mercy. When it ended, Brol lay face down, an axe embedded in his back, blood pooling beneath him. Thargus, seeing the carnage, turned his attention to Gunnar, his voice filled with grim determination. "Valeera, see to Brol. I'll deal with this wretch," he commanded, striding toward the wounded Dark Iron Dwarf. Gunnar, battered and bleeding from his facial wounds, struggled to lift himself off the ground. His arms trembled, barely able to keep him on his hands and knees. Suddenly, Thargus shoved him onto his back, looming over him with a dark, menacing expression. Thargus growled, "The rest of your company is dead, Dark Iron scum." He spat on the ground beside Gunnar. "Now, tell me where to find my brother." The defeated dwarf let out a wet, gurgling laugh, blood staining his teeth. "Thandol Span," Gunnar rasped, the words laced with defiance. "Why don't you go there, Thargus, so they can capture you as well? You and Hjalmar, last males of your bloodline, when you're both dead? Anvilmar's finished." His voice faltered, a choking cough cutting his speech short as he collapsed lifelessly to the ground. "Good ridden," he muttered before death silenced him. Nearby, Brol groaned deeply, his pain evident as Logash carefully removed the arrows from his bear form. "You've always made a fine pincushion, Brol," Logash remarked, his tone light but edged with concern. "Still, this must be some kind of record." "Don't joke, Logash," Valeera interjected, her voice trembling with worry and guilt. She knelt by Brol's side, her hands hovering as if unsure how to help. In his druid form, Brol could have called down lightning, but he stayed in bear form to shield me, and I was shaking so hard I couldn't throw straight. "I'm sorry, Brol. I'll do whatever you tell me to get better. Just please don't die." Brol's growl softened and Logash offered a reassuring grin. "He'll live, Valeera, if only for the pleasure of lecturing you further." With the last arrow removed, Brol shifted back into his night elf form, his face lined with pain but resolute. "With the arrows removed, I can heal myself," he said, his voice steadier now. "I'll be sore, but I just wish I could help you as easily." His gaze fell on Valeera, his concern evident. Thargus broke the silence, his tone clipped and practical. "Ironforge is still several days distant, but if we move fast..." "We're not going to Ironforge, Thargus," Logash interrupted, his voice firm. "We're going to find your brother." Thargus hesitated, his loyalty to King Magni conflicting with his desire to save his kin. "I appreciate that, Logash, but King of Stormwind or no, I follow Magni's orders." Logash's determination didn't waver. "Then come along to protect us while we rescue Hjalmar. I won't leave my old teacher in the hands of torturers." Brol, leaning on his staff, smirked despite his exhaustion. "Give it up, Thargus. You can't budge Logash once he's set on a course. He may really be king." As the group pressed on through the wetlands, their journey to Thandol Span took a sinister turn. From the shadows, a blood elf warlock emerged, his robes billowing as if carried by an unseen wind. His eyes locked onto Valeera with a predatory glint. "You keep strange company, blood elf, for one of our own," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. Stepping closer to her, he sneered. "Ah, I see you're still a child. Hungry, but as yet uncorrupted." Valeera stiffened as the warlock leaned in, his tone turning, almost mocking. "I shall change that. You'll thank me in time. Can you feel it, elf child? The fell energy you've already tasted, the sweetness it offered. Yes, I can sense your desire, and I am merciful. You shall have what you crave." His voice darkened as he raised his hand, power crackling in the air. "I cast upon you the mark of Cothran Atir. May you gaze unending into the dark heart of the twisting nether." A wave of dark energy surged toward Valeera, and she collapsed to the ground, clutching her chest as agony tore through her. Curled up, she writhed in pain, her cries piercing the tense silence. "No!" Brol roared, shifting out of his cheetah form, his fury palpable. The warlock smirked, turning his attention to the rest of the group. "Now, for the rest of you, I am Vendelin Soulfire. To face me is to know fear." With a sneer, he cast a fear spell, sending Logash's and Thargus's mounts into a frenzy. "Control your steed, Thargus. Force him to stand and fight," Logash shouted, trying to calm his own panicked horse. "I'm trying, Logash, but his spell's too powerful," Thargus yelled back, struggling to steady his ram. Brol glanced at Valeera, his expression grave. Too late. The monster has poured his foul magics through the floodgates of Valeera's soul. Her weakened state made her more vulnerable to his curse. His anger simmered, his hands glowing as he prepared to retaliate. Then we'll make certain that he dies, here and now, Logash declared, his voice brimming with determination. Summoning the natural world's fury, Brol raised his arms. Winds, come, and sweep this stinking monster into the void. He's a powerful warlock, but he's only one, and we are many. A twisting cyclone descended upon Vendelin, tearing through the landscape with raw force. The warlock merely laughed, his voice dripping with malevolence. You are already undone. I was forewarned of your alliance and came prepared to deal with such minor distractions. His hands glowed with dark energy as he unleashed a spell so potent that whatever it touched withered and died. Realizing the danger, Brol's eyes widened in horror. Run! As you value your lives, run! He yelled, scooping Valeera into his arms and sprinting away from the deadly spell. Logash ran beside him, his voice filled with urgency. What? Why are we running? Brol's reply came between labored breaths, his face set in grim determination. He's sacrificing the living essence all around him. He's conjuring a doom guard. The group fled through the wetlands, their mission momentarily set aside as the warlock's dark summoning began to reshape the battlefield into a place of dread and death. The fight for survival was far from over. Vendelin Soulfire stood at the center of his chaos, his cruel voice cutting through the air like a blade. The night elf and dwarf are yours, my pet, to do with as you choose. The human is mine. His hand extended toward Logash, and a wave of excruciating pain coursed through him. Vendelin sneered, delighting in the suffering. Writhe, little mortal. Your death is for my profit, but your pain is for my pleasure. Thargus struggled in the grip of the doom guard that loomed above him. Even in its clutches, he shouted, I'd say your unseen enemy is employing a better grade of assassin, Logash. The warlock's gloating was short-lived. Through sheer willpower and the rage to protect his friends, Logash fought back against the agony. Gritting his teeth, he rose to his feet, drawing his sword with determination etched into every movement. Then I hope you've enjoyed the pleasure, monster, because you won't live long enough to see the profit. Only your own death. Vendelin's confidence cracked as he watched Logash stand. That's impossible, he exclaimed, his voice laced with disbelief. Nearby, Brol invoked the forces of nature, his voice commanding and steady. Plants of the earth, rise up and snare the demon. Pull it beneath your swampy waters and tear it to pieces. Vines erupted from the wet ground, wrapping around the Doomguard, weakening its hold on Thargus. Logash didn't hesitate. Brol, grab Thargus from the demon's hand before he's pulled down with it, he ordered, his blade flashing as he severed the Doomguard's head with a single, precise strike. The colossal demon collapsed, defeated. Turning his fiery gaze to Vendelin, Logash didn't waste a moment. Before the warlock could fully process what had just occurred, Logash's blade found its mark again, slicing Vendelin's head from his body in one smooth motion. You said it yourself, Vendelin. To face me is to know fear. As night fell, the group found a place to rest, the battle's toll visible on each of them. Valeera lay cradled in Brol's arms, her face pale and her breaths uneven. Brol spoke softly, trying to reassure her. Rest easily, Valeera. The Blood Elf Warlock is no more. Valeera let out a weak groan, her voice trembling. It doesn't matter. I feel sick, and something dark still calls to me. I can hear it, feel its fell energy crawling like maggots through my soul. Suddenly, she pushed herself away from Brol's arms, her voice growing more frantic. Put me down, Brol, don't touch me! She staggered to her feet, tears streaming down her face. I'm too befouled, too filthy to bear it. Look at my hands, at the foul runes scrolled across them. Don't let my fate be sealed by this fell curse. Brol, please, by all that is holy, help me. Brol stood, his expression resolute despite the sorrow in his eyes. I'll do all I can, Valeera. But when days to come, it may be bitter. You have my promise. His voice carried the weight of his conviction, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead to save his friend. Sheltering in a damp cave, Brol and Valeera sought a moment of respite as Thargus and Logosh went ahead to investigate Thandol Span. The air was heavy with tension as Valeera voiced her guilt. "I feel unclean, and I hate that your left to nursemaid me," she said softly, sitting against the cool stone wall. Brol knelt beside her, offering a cup of herbal brew. "Drink this. It might help a bit." Valeera shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. "I'm no good for anything right now. I can hardly stand, much less fight." "You were attacked with fell energy," Brol reminded her gently. "Until it's out of your system." She interrupted him, her voice tinged with fear. "But Brol, that monster saw what I was. He knew what I wanted, what I still want." Brol met her gaze, his tone filled with understanding. "You're a blood elf, Valeera. Vendelin recognized you instantly, and his curse upon you was his weapon. Those runes you bear are the scars of your battle, more painful than any sword cut, and more difficult to heal. Listen to me. When a demon attacked me, I too blamed myself, and wasted years in useless self-recrimination. Don't you do that. What happened to you matters, but how you deal with it matters more. And you're no liability. Climb on my back, and we'll do some scouting of our own." As Brol shifted into his flight form, Valeera climbed onto his back, her voice trembling as they took to the skies. "It was my fault, Brol. You warned me, but I touched that fell dagger anyway. The merest brush, and it felt wonderful." She paused, staring at the horizon as they flew. "I craved the fell energy the warlock offered. Only, it wasn't what I thought it would be. And now, I'm scared. Of what I am, and what I could become." After some time in the air, the pair approached Thandol Span. The towering bridge loomed before them, its massive chain links connecting the pillars to castle-like towers. Next to it stood the ruins of the destroyed First Bridge, a stark reminder of past battles. The herbs Brol had given Valeera began to take effect, and her strength was returning. Even in far Kalimdor, they tell the tale of how the Dark Irons destroyed one of the bridges. The second bridge still stands. It's beautiful, isn't it? Though the Dark Irons are said to be fighting to destroy it as well. "Brol, is that smoke?" Her keen eyes spotted a troubling sight ahead. As they flew closer, Valeera's sharp vision picked out details. "It's some kind of machine. What is it?" "I'll bet you know, don't you?" "Oh, I wish your animal forms could talk," she muttered. Her gaze shifted, landing on a group of dwarves. "And dwarves? Brol! Dark Irons by the look of them. But I thought the Alliance held the Thandol Span." Her voice grew more urgent as she spotted a bloodied, shackled figure stumbling into view. "And they've got a prisoner, a Bronzebeard. Same big nose as Thargus. I'll bet that's his brother." She continued, her voice dropping. "There's a wizard, too. I can see his dark aura. He must be their boss. And that thing beside him. Is that a fell hunter? It's suffused with fell energy. Brol, fly closer. Are those explosives?" Her words were cut off as Dark Iron scouts spotted them, and arrows zipped through the air. "We've been seen! Get out of here, Brol!" she cried as they evaded the shots, flying as fast as possible to regroup with Logosh and Thargus. There are Dark Irons on Thandol Span, led by a warlock carrying a horned helmet. Thargus' face darkened with rage as he cut her off. "A Dark Iron warlock has taken my brother's helm? He'll pay dearly for that insult." Valeera continued despite his interruption. There was also a rusty old machine belching steam. It looked like they were offloading explosives, and we saw a Bronzebeard in chains. He must be Hjalmar. "The Dark Irons saw us, Logosh. I'm sorry. That will make them wary." Brol added, a note of regret in his voice. Logosh was undeterred. "We may get lucky. They could be watching the skies while we kill their scouts and sentries as we go in." As the group readied their mounts, Thargus spoke, his tone resolute. "An imposter sits on the throne of Stormwind, Logosh. In return for your help here, I pledge my aid in routing the usurper and destroying those behind him." Logosh nodded. "I thank you, my friend. I fear the usurper could threaten my son." Thargus reassured him. "King Magni will assure himself of Anduin's safety, Logosh." The group finally reached Thandol Span, where the Dark Irons had established sentry posts atop the towers and at both ends of the bridge. From their vantage point, Logosh surveyed the area with a grim expression. "They'll need time to pull their men from the towers," he observed. "We move in now, but we'll need cover." Brol nodded and prepared to summon nature's aid. Fog, he said decisively. Dense, creeping in slowly, followed by wind and driving rain. As Logash started down the hill, he turned back in a firm warning. Just keep it subtle, Brol. No lightning, he added quickly, remembering the explosives. Brol chuckled despite the tension. I hear you, my friend. The ancients forbid we aid the Dark Irons and blow up the bridge ourselves. His humor did little to lift the mood, but his fog began to roll in, cloaking their approach. Logash turned to Valeera, concern in his eyes. You're staying here, you're not ready. But Valeera refused to be left behind. I won't wait. I won't be left behind again, she said with determination. Brol's herbal potion worked wonders. I'm fine now. Logash disagreed, but Brol placed a reassuring hand on Valeera's shoulder. She's not fully recovered, he said, meeting Logash's gaze. But leaving her alone here would be riskier. Joining the fight will give her focus beyond her own pain. She's earned the right. Shrouded in the thick fog Brol conjured, the group moved stealthily onto the bridge, silently dispatching several dark irons along the way. Suddenly, Valeera's senses sharpened as she felt an ominous presence. Fell energy ahead, she warned, glancing around. The fog was dispersing, and she realized the warlock must have used a fell hunter to counter Brol's spell. So much for secrecy, Thargus grunted, gripping his weapon as he prepared for a fight. The battle erupted with chaos. Brol shifted into his bear form, swiping through dark iron soldiers. Valeera drew her dagger and charged alongside him, her movements quick and precise. Above the noise, the warlock's voice rang out. Take them alive. We'll burn their secrets from them. Logash tightened his grip on his sword. Now we must trust to sinew and steel, and do some serious killing. Thargus, go. Find your brother in the tower. For Anvilmar. Death to the Dark Irons, Thargus bellowed, charging forward. The warlock surveyed the chaos, frustration creeping into his tone. A Bronzebeard, he snarled, and several of my fighters have already fallen. These warriors might prevail, even against the might of the Dark Iron clan. He raised his arms, summoning a monstrous weapon. Golem, arise and defend. Logash took charge. Brol, take Valeera and handle the others. The golem is mine, he ordered, his confidence unwavering. He quickly learned, however, that the war machine was a formidable opponent. Even you are not a match for a war golem's fist, my friend, Thargus called out. But the Dark Irons themselves have provided the key to our victory. He climbed into one of the Dark Iron siege engines, using its weapons against the golem. With a blast from its cannon, the golem was felled, the explosion leaving a gaping hole in the tower. Inside, Thargus called out to his brother, Hjalmar, hold on, I'm coming! Meanwhile, Logash's focus was broken by a horrifying sight. Valeera had lost control, tearing into the fell hunter with primal ferocity. Blood smeared her mouth as she ripped a chunk of its flesh with her teeth. Valeera, no! Brol roared, pulling her back. Why so angry, Brol? She snapped, her voice unnervingly gleeful. The Magic Eater is dead. Now your spells will work! Brol's anger was palpable. You know you shouldn't have. She's right, Brol, Logash interrupted. Summon the rain. Soak their powder. We can discuss her behavior later. Inside the tower, Thargus found his brother tied to the explosives, his arms suspended over his head. The warlock stood nearby, sneering. Thargus Anvilmar, you're just in time. Before I kill you, you can watch as I drive a fire spell through the crown of the Anvilmars, fusing it to your brother's face. He'll die the last patriarch of the Anvilmars, and you'll die the last Anvilmar of all, cursing my name. Thargus didn't hesitate. Charging forward, he roared, Think more and talk less, wizard. With a single strike, he severed the warlock's hand, silencing him. Rushing to free Hjalmar, Thargus reassured his brother, I'll have you out in a moment. Forget me, Hjalmar rasped weakly. Bridge. Threatened. It's under control, Hjal. Even now, the explosives outside are being destroyed. Thandol Span is saved, Thargus said confidently. But the warlock, clinging to life, used his final moments to ignite the dynamite. Hjalmar, seeing this, said, Not yet. As he pushed Thargus out of the way and took the bulk of the explosion, protecting his brother. Thargus stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief as he gazed upon the scene before him. Hjalmar? A cry escaped his lips like a broken echo, filled with raw pain. His gaze shifted to the warlock, who still clung feebly to life. Thargus' grief quickly turned to rage, and with a single decisive swing of his mighty axe, he ensured the fiend would never draw breath again. "Hjalmar!" Thargus roared as he dropped to his knees beside his dying brother. His trembling hands grasped Hjalmar's bloodied form. "Why?" he choked, his voice breaking under the weight of his sorrow. Hjalmar's breath was labored, each word a struggle, yet his tone remained steady. "I had to stop him," he murmured, the faintest trace of a wry smile flickering across his face. "Seemed like a good idea. A moment ago. The helm of the Anvilmars is now yours. Wear it bravely. Save Thandol Span." With those final words, Hjalmar's body went still, his life slipping away like a whisper on the wind. Thargus clenched his brother's lifeless form, his grief reverberating through the silence that followed. In that moment, the weight of Hjalmar's sacrifice, and the duty now resting on Thargus' shoulders, pressed down upon him like a mountain. His grief now mingled with determination, placed the helm of the Anvilmars on his head. The weight of his brother's legacy and his clan's honor rested squarely on his shoulders. "It shall be saved," he whispered, his voice resolute. Then with a roar that echoed across the battlefield, he stood tall. "I, Thargus, last of the Anvilmars, do swear it." Outside the tower, the remaining Dark Irons regrouped, their numbers closing in on Brol, Valeera, and Logosh. One of them sneered, "Where's the Bronzebeard? I want to see him die." Their question was swiftly answered as Thargus leaped from the tower with an enraged battle cry. "Here, Dark Iron, see me and die. For Anvilmar, for Hjalmar, for my brother." Thargus tore into their ranks with fury and precision, his blows landing with deadly accuracy. Driven by a newfound focus, he cut down Dark Iron after Dark Iron. But as he fought, the Dark Irons managed to activate their siege engine. The massive war machine roaring to life, the tide threatened to turn until, with a deafening boom, the engine was obliterated by a well-aimed cannon shot from an approaching airship. The airship, emblazoned with a Bronzebeard banner, swooped low as its gunners fired upon the remaining Dark Irons, swiftly finishing them off. Relief spread across the battlefield as the airship landed and none other than King Magni Bronzebeard descended to meet the group. Magni's expression was grim as he clasped Thargus' hand. "So, Hjalmar is dead. It was your brother's warning that brought me to Thandol Span. I am sorry, Thargus." Thargus, wearing his brother's helm with pride and sorrow, responded. "It was his last act of heroism that saved the bridge from destruction." Magni nodded solemnly. "Nevertheless, I can see that without your intervention, we would have arrived too late. I seem to remember ordering you to take your charge to Ironforge," he said, his gaze turning toward Thargus. Before Thargus could answer, Logosh stepped forward, his tone steady and commanding. "That was my doing. I ordered Thargus to bring me here instead. Hjalmar was my old teacher. I couldn't leave him in Dark Iron hands, nor could I let Thandol Span be destroyed." His words made it clear that Thargus was not to be blamed. "How did it happen that the bridge was left undefended and fell to the Dark Irons while I was away?" he asked pointedly. "That is but one of the things we need to find out," Magni said, his voice heavy with concern. Then after a pause, he added with quiet gravity, "Your doppelganger in Stormwind has been remarkably ineffective in his brief tenure. I am addressing King Varian, I presume." Logosh met his gaze, the weight of his true identity lingering in the air, as the group prepared for the next steps in their journey. The return of King Magni Bronzebeard and his dwarves was a significant occasion, but the true spectacle was the group accompanying him, the human warrior and the two mysterious elves who had played a crucial role in saving the Thandol Span. When the Zeppelin docked and the group began their descent, the crowd's murmur shifted into audible whispers. "There's the human between Magni and Thargus. Looks a lot like King Varian of Stormwind. The female, surely she's not a blood elf. She should be drawn and quartered, not welcomed into Ironforge." The group moved forward, led by Logosh and Magni, with Thargus steadfastly at their side. Brol and Valeera trailed slightly behind, their expressions a mix of caution and fatigue. Magni broke the silence as they walked. "Varian, Until I reveal myself, King Magni, perhaps it would be best if I remain Logosh, a simple gladiator." Logosh interrupted. Magni huffed. "Hardly simple. Still, until we know more about the impostor who sits on your throne, you may be right. Rumors are already abroad in the land. You have an enemy somewhere, Logosh, who understands your significance and has sought to terminate you more than once." As they passed through the bustling streets, Magni's voice dropped. I spoke with a trusted guard, Windsor. He's been investigating the matter of your doppelganger in Stormwind. Logash nodded thoughtfully. Windsor's a good man, a loyal friend. We studied swordcraft together, though the hammer proved to be his favored weapon. Magni grunted in agreement. He began to suspect that an imposter, perhaps even a dragon, had taken Varian's form. He planned to do a bit of digging. Like me, Windsor was troubled by the king's odd passiveness. Behind them, Valeera shifted uncomfortably. I feel hungry, she muttered. Brol glanced at her. There will be a feast soon. Her voice dropped to a strained whisper. It's not food I want. The fell energy coursing through her veins was relentless, a gnawing hunger that refused to be sated. She clenched her fists, trying to suppress the growing craving. Brol's gaze turned somber. I know, Valeera. You crave the energy of magic. Arcane, fell, it doesn't matter. Until the fell energy is out of your system, you'll do anything to feed your addiction. I fear you will face increasingly terrible pangs as you withdraw. Suddenly, Valeera's eyes narrowed as she caught sight of a figure moving purposely through the crowd. A guard, his hand clenched around a blade glowing faintly with arcane energy, was advancing toward Logash. Her breath hitched as her addiction and instincts collided. Brol, the human, his hand, can't you see it? Sharp and dangerous, pointed at Logash's back, and burning with arcane energy. I must have it! Without hesitation, Valeera unsheathed her daggers and leapt forward, landing squarely on the guard's back. Her blades found their mark, and the man let out a pained yell. The commotion brought Logash's attention to the scene. Valeera, what? He exclaimed, his hand instinctively going to his weapon. Who has dared to wound me? You're no demon. I will kill you first, insolent young elf. The human roared as his form began to shift. Flesh gave way to scales, and his body expanded into a colossal black dragon. A black dragon! Suffer and perish! Valeera snarled, daggers flashing as she prepared to strike. The dragon reared back, fire building in its throat before it unleashed a torrent of flame. Valeera reacted swiftly, summoning a shield of fell energy to protect herself. But before she could charge, Brol grabbed her and pulled her behind him. Valeera, get back! He shouted, raising his hands to the sky. I call upon lightning and storm to strike! Grab Valeera, Brol, I'm on it. Logash's voice cut through the chaos as he hurled an axe with unerring precision. The weapon struck true, embedding itself in the dragon as lightning crackled around it. Roaring in pain, the dragon took to the skies, leaving a smoldering crater in its wake. You can turn off the taps, Brol. It's over, Logash said. Brol lowered his hands, the storm dissipating. But the danger was far from over. Valeera lunged at Brol, clawing at his face. Garam Hagul! Arul Sach Kyan! She screamed, her voice guttural and feral. Brol held her back, careful not to harm her. Logash, she's gone mad. Help me, I don't want to hurt her. Logash moved swiftly, grabbing Valeera and pulling her away. She collapsed into unconsciousness, her body finally succumbing to exhaustion. She's passed out, Logash said. Brol's face was grim. Did you hear her? She was cursing the dragon, cursing me in Eredun. The language of the Burning Legion? But how? Logash asked, his brow furrowed. Brol shook his head. We'll need to pursue that inquiry later. For now, it's clear the Black Dragons are involved in these assassination attempts. Back in Ironforge, Magni gathered the group for a meeting. Marshal Windsor has been taken by the Dark Irons and is being held in Blackrock Depths, he announced. The fact that Windsor was taken suggests he was on the right path. We need to rescue him and find out what he's learned, Thargus said. Blah, blah. Less talk, more action. When do we leave? Valeera demanded, her impatience obvious. Magni's expression was stern. We don't even know if he's still alive, Valeera. There's only one way to find out. I think it's hero time again, Logash, Thargus said, looking toward the warrior. The entrance to Blackrock Depths will be well guarded, but a small party using a stealthy approach might be able to enter undetected. Stealth is my middle name, Valeera said, eager to get moving. You're not coming, Valeera, Logash said firmly. What? We've been through this before, Logash. It's like Anduin said. You need me. My actions revealed the dragon assassin. I know you're worried about this fell energy garbage, but I have it under control. Brol, tell him, she pleaded fiercely. Brol's voice was resolute. Fell and arcane artifacts are scattered throughout Blackrock Depths, Valeera. In your unbridled hunger for darker forms of energy, You would reach out for them and betray our need for secrecy. Grabbing her arm gently, Brol said, Valeera, you couldn't help yourself. You cursed in Eredun. At the very least, that tells me you're beyond our help until the fell energy has left your system. Turning her to face him, Brol continued, Magni will keep you safely in a chamber until your craving for fell energy has subsided and you're yourself again. Until then, you're a danger to everyone, yourself most of all. Valeera's face twisted in anger. That's not fair. It isn't my fault. I was attacked. This isn't about fault or blame, Valeera. Back in the wetlands, I promised to help you. Now that you've come so far down the fell path, this sanctuary is the only help I can offer, Brol said with fatherly compassion. Reluctantly, Valeera was placed in a sanctuary atop a tower overlooking the center of Ironforge. She paced the room, her frustration boiling over. I hate this. No herbal draft could dull this pain. They don't care about me, she cried. They're just abandoning me without a backward glance. I could have held it together if only they'd let me have a small taste of... Who am I kidding? Brol's right. They're all right to leave me. I would betray them. It's so unfair. I can't stand being cooped up here, but I'll escape. Go after them. If I don't get free, I think I'll truly die. In a fit of rage, she hurled a bowl of Brol's brew at the wall. The shattering sound echoed through the chamber. I don't want your stupid draft, Brol. You shouldn't have left me here. You shouldn't. Her voice broke into a whisper as tears streamed down her face. Why does everyone always leave me? A voice interrupted her thoughts. My poor daughter. How dare he punish you in this fashion? After all you did to save him and the others, to have imprisoned and abandoned you? She turned, her eyes wide. Papa, she said softly. Her mother's voice joined in, sharp and cruel. That night elf scum is arrogant and without honor, like all of his kind. And the human and dwarf are no better. You see how they repay your sacrifice? How they disparage you and try to twist you into something you are not. And now you cringe, whimpering for him. You are worthy only of our contempt. No, I'm not. I'll be brave, I promise. Just don't go. Valeera cried, stumbling toward them. The sensation of falling hit her, icy wind rushing past as she plummeted. The ground loomed closer, and when she hit, pain shot through her body. Her parents' voices echoed in her head. The world is corrupt and broken, daughter, like you, her father said. And like you, it can only be healed by death. The death of all who live. So come, join us, and let the world begin anew, her mother added. No, another voice thundered. Be gone. Do not listen to them, child. They are not what they seem. Valeera's voice was weak. Egwin? I'm cursed. Aren't I? Yes, child. With the runes of Vendelin's evil desires scrawled across your skin, the demon of the Burning Legion strives to possess you. I have not the power to dispel his influence completely, but I can help you fight his efforts to control you, Egwin said. Why me? The eternal question, my child. That is but one of many answers you must discover. But always remember, Valeera, that you are not alone. There are those who truly care for you and will aid you in your struggles. They will not abandon you, whether you would have it so or not, and neither will I. When Valeera awoke, her voice was a whisper. Logash? Brol. Egwin. Seeing her friends return, she ran to greet them. Logash! Brol! I knew you'd come back for me. I'm okay now. The runes are gone. It was hard, Brol, but your drafts helped so much. King Magni says I can go with you if you know who the dragon is. Running and jumping into Brol's arms, she hugged him tightly. Brol smiled warmly. We know. Marshal Windsor and Logash rode atop noble steeds. Targus sat astride a sturdy ram, its thick coat a testament to its mountain origins, while Valeera perched lightly atop Brol, who had assumed his travel form as a sleek and powerful cheetah. The group's approach was a sight to behold, each member exuding determination as they advanced together. The immense walls and fortifications stood as a testament to the city's might, designed to intimidate and repel invaders. Yet this group harbored no hostile intent. Armed with Marshal Windsor's revelations, they bore critical knowledge. A black dragon was plotting to usurp the throne of Stormwind. I still say a clandestine approach to Stormwind Keep would have been safe for Logash. Thargus muttered, his tone tinged with apprehension. Logash replied with unwavering resolve. Safer perhaps, but a public spectacle will force the dragon into the open and expose the fraud who dares wear my crown. My double will be unmasked for all to see. As I passed through the gates, Valeera's attention was drawn to 4 statues, 2 humans, a blood elf, and a dwarf, standing solemnly in tribute. What are those statues? She asked, her curiosity evident. Logash answered, his voice carrying a note of reverence. They are a tribute, Valeera, to the valiant who sacrificed their lives to ensure Stormwind's survival. Thargus exhaled sharply. If we don't succeed in this endeavor, we could well be joining them. Suddenly, the blaring of trumpets filled the air as guards began mobilizing toward the group. With Logash being the true Varian, the group was led into the city and toward the keep where his impostor slumbered. A piercing voice echoed from a balcony above. General Jonathan, seize the arrogant deceiver and worthless traitor who rides with him. Toss him and his party into the deepest dungeon to await execution. The group looked up to see a woman standing beside the impostor Varian, her tone dripping with authority. As the group halted in front of the balcony, a guard approached. He was tall with short red hair, a beard, and the robust frame of a seasoned soldier. Logash stepped forward, his voice commanding. Tread softly, Marcus. Despite what you have been told, I am Varian, the true king of Stormwind. Our kingdom is threatened by a black dragon masquerading as a human, and that man on the balcony who pretends to be your king is an imposter. The guard Marcus hesitated, his gaze flickering toward Windsor. Walking up to him, he met Windsor's eye and spoke evenly. Reginald, you know that I cannot let you pass. Windsor's voice was steady, filled with conviction. Marcus, we served together under Turalian. Do you truly believe I would harm our alliance? Lady Prestor is a black dragon, Marcus. I don't know about the man who calls himself Varian, but I swear to you, the warrior beside me is our true king. Arrest them, Marcus, I command it! What are you waiting for? Lady Prestor yelled from the balcony, her voice sharp with impatience. Marcus turned back to Windsor and Logash, his expression conflicted. Finally, his resolve hardened. You would not lie, he said quietly. Turning to his men, he declared, It is as Windsor says, let them pass, and may the light guide your hand. As they entered the throne room, weapons drawn, Logash's voice resonated through the wall. The masquerade is over, Lady Prestor. His hands gripped his swords tightly. Or should we address you by your true name, Onyxia? Marshal Windsor added. Lady Prestor's laughter was low and menacing as she began her transformation. Her wings unfurled and her voice dripped with disdain. You're a useless pawn, Varian, she sneered, striking Varian with a force that sent him crashing into a wall. Far more trouble than any human I've encountered. As her body transformed, her flesh became scales, her eyes burned yellow, and her true form was revealed for the first time for all to see. Logash rose, his resolve unshaken. That, dragon, is because you haven't yet dealt with me. Onyxia hissed, her tone venomous. You think yourself a match for me? Foolish mortal. But I will deal with you now. Permanently. Get her, Logash commanded. But Valeera's eyes had caught something unsettling. The guards, they're not human, she exclaimed. Windsor's voice was grim as he confirmed her observation. The girl's right. They're dragon spawn. Kill the interlopers. Defend our mistress. One dragon spawn roared as chaos erupted. The throne room became a battlefield. Blades clashed against claws, and the sound of roars and cries filled the air as the group fought valiantly against the dragon spawn. Varian, thrown hard against the wall by the force of Onyxia's strike, groaned as he struggled back to his feet. His vision swam for a moment, but his resolve hardened. Gripping his swords tightly, he shouted, I don't know what the hell is going on, but I do know this. I'll play the dragon's dupe no longer. With a surge of strength, he charged back into the fray, his strikes precise and fueled by anger. Amidst the chaos, Broll bellowed, The dragon belches fire and lava, as he hoisted a dragon spawn into the air. Onyxia's flames incinerated the creature without hesitation. Logash's voice rang out grim and sharp, and doesn't care if she incinerates one of her own, provided we perish as well. Thargus, undeterred, let out a battle cry and charged toward Onyxia with his axe raised high. Broll, shifting into his bear form, roared as he surged forward in support, his massive frame moving like an unstoppable force, ready to meet the dragon head-on. Valeera, get back! Thargus bellowed. You're unarmored and your daggers won't even scratch a dragon's hide. Valeera's voice was defiant. "Not her hide, her eyes, Thargus," she shouted, attempting to maneuver for a strike. But Onyxia's fiery breath surged toward her. In a split second, Brol leaped in front of the flames, shielding her with his massive frame. "Brol, no!" Valeera cried as he pulled her to safety. Amidst the chaos, Windsor called out to Bolvar Foredragon. "Welcome to the fight. As you can see, Lady Prestor is no more. May I introduce you to the Black Brood Queen herself, Onyxia." Bolvar joined the fray, cutting down dragon spawn with practiced precision. "You might have warned me, Reginald," he shouted, frustration laced in his voice. Windsor's reply was strained. "Too dangerous, Foredragon. The dragon's spies were everywhere. Even those closest to the king were under her sway." Onyxia's gaze locked onto Windsor. Her voice carried a cruel satisfaction. "Windsor, you, at least, will not escape me." Flames engulfed him as her fire breath consumed him, his agonized cries echoing in the chamber. Witnessing Onyxia killing Windsor, Logash yells out, "Your mistress will pay for that death, Dragonspawn, with her life," as he strikes down more Dragonspawn in his way. "Hold on, Logash, we're coming," Valeera cried, clutching tightly on Brol's fur as he barreled forward. His massive bear form a force of nature. Thargus ran alongside, his axe gleaming as he bellowed. "And we'll see how Onyxia fares against hardened dwarf weapons." But before they could reach the dragon, Onyxia beat her massive wings, taking to the air. She unleashed a torrent of fire from above, forcing the group to scatter as the flames scorched the ground. Amidst the chaos, a terrified cry rang out. "Father, help me!" Anduin shouted, running desperately from Onyxia. Before anyone could intervene, her claws snatched him from the ground. Hovering above, Onyxia sneered, her voice laced with malice. "He can't aid you, child. Neither of them can. I have a special welcome prepared for you at home. We'll soon test your mettle, and see if you are as much trouble as your maddening sire." "Anduin!" Logash's cry echoed as Onyxia ascended. "She's gone," Logash said bitterly, his fists clenched. Varian's face was pale but resolute. "And she's taken my son with her." The two Varians shared a grim look, their rivalry set aside by shared purpose. "I've begun to remember some of what happened to me while I was lost," Varian said, his voice low. "The tale involves treachery." "And darkest sorcery," Logash added, his expression determined. Bolvar, standing nearby, nodded grimly. "No surprise there, considering that Onyxia is involved. Perhaps, once she is destroyed, one of you, the false Varian, will simply disappear." Valeera, her voice sharp, quipped, "We should be so lucky." Logash's tone was steady as he said, "Against that eventuality, let us compare memories as we journey to Onyxia's lair. We are linked in some way I do not understand, and together, we may hold the key to her destruction." With heavy hearts and renewed determination, the group prepared for their journey, knowing that Anduin's fate and the future of Stormwind hung precariously in the balance. The debate began with urgency. Anduin needed rescuing, and Windsor pointed them toward a lair near Theramore, confident Jaina Proudmoore could reveal its exact location. Logash insisted Bolvar remain behind and Stormwind to govern during their absence, a decision Varian reluctantly supported. Bolvar hesitated but ultimately agreed. "Every guard has volunteered to ride with us, despite the danger. Let us be away," declared Varian with resolve. "I expect nothing less from Stormwind's finest. Board the Zeppelin, men. We sail with the evening breeze for Theramore Isle," Logash commanded, his voice rallying their spirits. As the Zeppelin ascended, a brewing storm darkened the horizon. The captain, eyeing the turbulent skies, announced his plan. "We'll fly low and try to avoid the worst of it." Brol raised his staff, his tone steady yet strained. "I'll do what I can to calm the winds and direct any lightning away from us, but..." Thargus interrupted abruptly. "I don't want to know, just hurry. Young Anduin's a fine lad, otherwise I'd never have opted to fly through a gathering storm halfway across the world." Amid the turbulence, Varian and Logash reflected on their past, trying to see what each one remembers, and if one can fill in the other's blanks. Varian shared his memories of the First War, the trickle of orcs that became a flood after Medivh, the guardian of Azeroth, betrayed humanity by opening the Dark Portal. Anduin, Lothar, and Khadgar had thwarted Medivh's plan, but at a heavy cost: the death of Medivh. Varian recalled the horror of his father's assassination by the half-orc Garona. Varian remembers Garona having tears in her eyes when she committed the act, and to this day doesn't understand why. After the war, the orcs destroyed Stormwind, forcing Anduin and Lothar to escort Varian to safety in Lordaeron. Years later, crowned at 18, Varian threw himself into rebuilding his kingdom, fighting orc raiding parties and searching for Garona. Amid the chaos, he found love in Tiffin, and named their son Anduin after Lothar. But tragedy struck again. Upon returning from a raid, Varian discovered the Council of Nobles, influenced by Lady Prestor, had refused to pay the Stormmasons Guild for rebuilding Stormwind. The resulting riot claimed Tiffin's life when a rock struck her head. Her death shattered Varian, leaving him an empty shell, vulnerable to Prestor's manipulation. It was Anduin's unwavering presence that rekindled Varian's resolve. Gradually, his focus returned. At Anduin's urging, he reluctantly attended a peace conference in Theramore to meet Thrall, the orc leader. Leaving Prestor behind, Varian sought to see if peace could truly bridge the chasm between their peoples. But he never arrived in Theramore. From Varian and Logash's conversation, they realized the Defies hid among the crew and attacked Varian as he slept. Most likely, they drugged him and killed those loyal to him. After that, he just remembers waking on the island with hooded men and Naga around him. Then, before they could dive deeper into each other's memories, the storm worsened, and through its furious winds, black dragons emerged. "Onyxia's minions, sent to destroy us," Varian roared. "Then together, let us be certain the black-hearted witch regrets sending them to their deaths," Logash spat. Brol shifted into bear form ready to fight, but Valeera snapped. "Brol, quit showing off and use your druidic magic to stop these monsters. We can't afford injuries." Reluctantly, Brol raised his staff, his grip tightening around it. "However satisfying the battle is, you have a point," he admitted, his voice tinged with reluctance. Lifting his staff high, he called upon the elements with commanding force. "Rise up, you churning clouds, lightning strike and incinerate our enemies. Seaweed, erupt from the ocean's depths and drag the drakes beneath the tumbling waves." At his command, the storm obeyed. Bolts of lightning crackled through the sky, striking with devastating precision. From the sea's depths, massive tendrils of seaweed surged upward, ensnaring the drakes as they screeched in fury, swallowing the writhing beasts whole, dragging them into the abyss where they would trouble the world no more. Varian gazed into the tempestuous sea. "Onyxia will shed bitter tears when this news reaches her." Thargus's expression darkened. "The blasted she-dragon has spies everywhere. She knows we're coming." "I bet she's afraid." Valeera smirked. "She's only toying with us, Valeera," Logash said, his eyes steely. "But we will teach her fear. When she took my son, she sealed her fate." Upon reaching Theramore, Jaina Proudmoore greeted them. She noted with curiosity that if not for Logash's scar, he and Varian would look like identical twins, even sharing a similar aura of arcane sorcery. Meanwhile, Valeera spoke with Chancellor Egwin, recounting the dream she had at Ironforge while trying to fight through her fell cravings and get back to her normal self. "I know what I said, child. I'm old, not senile," Egwin interrupted warmly. "The danger to you is real and present, but I will help you as much as I can. Now come, we need to talk." The battle for Stormwind's future began in the depths of Onyxia's lair, the air thick with the scent of brimstone and fear. With Anduin held hostage by the Black Dragon, the group fought not just for victory but for vengeance. Fueled by their fury, warriors stormed through her Dragon Spawn and Dragonwhelp defenders, their blades crackling with enchantments woven by Jaina Proudmoore. Varian and Logash's swords, infused with magic, cut through their enemies like fire through dry leaves. Jaina's sharp gaze caught sight of an ominous presence among Onyxia's ranks. "Onyxia has a sorcerer, a powerful one," she called out. Brol and Valeera needed no further instruction, charging forward to cut down the spellcaster before he could turn the tide of the battle. With the sorcerer slain and Jaina freezing a path ahead, the warriors pressed on. Brol raised his staff high and called upon the power of the earth itself. "Roots of the earth, hear me. The fiery enemy is within your grasp. Rise up and crush the dragon spawn." The ground obeyed, coming to life and ensnaring Onyxia's minions, ending the dragon spawn where they stood. But as the battle raged on, Anduin seized a fleeting opportunity to break free from Onyxia's clutches. His moment of freedom was short-lived. With a cruel laugh, she snatched him back, her voice dripping with venom. "Now that you have performed a final service and brought your father within my grasp, 'tis time my newest hatchling should gorge on royal flesh." Jaina's mastery of magic shattered the arcane barriers guarding Onyxia's sanctum, allowing the group to charge in. Within, they found Anduin struggling in the dragon's grasp, her claws tightening as she taunted his father. "Don't listen to her, father," Anduin cried out. "She's using me to trick you. She's going to kill me anyway." Varian's answer was swift, his voice carrying the weight of unyielding resolve. "Then we will die together, my son. Death to Onyxia!" With all his might, he hurled a dagger at the dragon, aiming to loosen her grip. Anduin tumbled from her grasp, plummeting toward the ground below, straight into the path of a waiting dragon spawn. When he hit the ground, he thought he was a goner with the hatchlings around him ready to devour him alive. But before death could claim him, Brol, in his flight form, swooped in, snatching the prince from peril. Their escape, however, was short-lived. A blast of fire sent Brol crashing to the ground. Injured and unable to rise, he could do nothing as the dragon spawn closed in. Anduin, bruised but defiant, stood before them, shielding the druid with his small frame. The druid was injured in my service, and I will protect him with my life. To reach him, monsters, you'll have to go through me, he called out, wielding a rock as his only weapon. From behind, Thargus and Valeera arrived, the dwarf's gruff voice ringing with admiration. Brave speech from a lad whose only weapon is a rock. Foolhardy even. Reminds me of your father. Both of them. Valeera, assessing the situation, smirked and handed Anduin a dagger. His name is Brol, and he'll be fine. I've seen him recover from far worse. Here, take one of my daggers. It's enchanted and far more lethal than that stone. As Brol regained his strength, he shifted into his bear form and charged alongside Thargus toward Onyxia, with Thargus calling back with his axe raised. Guard the prince, Valeera, while we slay the accursed dragon. Varian and Logosh fought as one, driving their blades into Onyxia's hide, but she called forth more of her brood surrounding them. How well do you think this ends for us? Varian muttered. Logosh smirked. Shut up and kill them faster. Brol, summoning his remaining strength, roared. Enough! Onyxia's brood serve only to distract us from our true mission. We must take this battle to its source. Rise up in wrath, you living roots beneath the soil. Show the dragon witch how the righteous earth itself abhors her treachery. The ground trembled as roots burst forth, ensnaring Onyxia and her minions. But Onyxia had one final trick. With a sinister incantation, she cast a powerful fear spell. Soldiers turned and fled in terror, their will sapped. Valeera and Thargus stood frozen, their bodies refusing to obey. Even Brol, mighty as he was, struggled against the enchantment. He urged the others to move in and take down Onyxia as he couldn't hold her in place much longer. Onyxia laughed, her voice dripping with arrogance. It is not I who will fall this day, but the royal house of Rin. And with great reluctance and regret, the Lady Prestor will become the regent and eventual ruler of Stormwind. I have always wanted my own kingdom. Her eyes gleamed with wicked delight as she began to cast a spell. One Varian knew all too well, the same spell that had once tore him in two. With a burst of strength, Varian pushed Logosh out of the way, allowing the spell to wash over him instead. Light and shadow danced around him as his fractured soul was made whole once more. He turned to Onyxia, standing taller, stronger, complete. Well done, Onyxia. Your fondest wish has come true. Varian Rin, King of Stormwind, and the lands beyond, stands before you. I am restored at last, and if you want my kingdom, you'll have to take it the old-fashioned way, with blood and iron. With one final charge, Varian leaped atop Onyxia's head. His sword, burning with the fury of his reclaimed destiny, plunged deep into her skull. The dragon screeched in agony, her reign of terror ending in a cascade of fire and shadow. As her massive form collapsed, the cavern trembled. Onyxia was dead. Stormwind's king had returned. The triumphant scene unfolded against the backdrop of Onyxia's fallen domain. Standing tall before the slain dragon, Varian addressed his warriors, his voice ringing with pride and gratitude. Warriors of Stormwind, the dragon is dead. You have earned the gratitude of your king, and for your bravery and devotion to your nation, you return to Stormwind as heroes. This triumph will honor your courage and the sacrifice of those who died in service to our land. Afterwards, a national party will celebrate our victory over Onyxia and the restoration of Stormwind's ruler, he proclaimed, flanked by his loyal companions and his soldiers standing at attention before him. With a swift motion, Varian lifted his blade and severed the dragon's massive head, its weighty thud marking the symbolic end of her terror. You will journey home with the proof of your victory. The dragon's head will decorate the castle's ramparts as a tribute to your prowess and a warning to our enemies, he declared. The soldiers hoisted the dragon's grotesque trophy, bearing it away as Varian turned to his companions. I must return to Theramore for a short while, Thargus, but a zeppelin will transport our trophy back to Stormwind, along with our living heroes and the bodies of the honored slain. Thargus stepped forward, his voice laced with a somber resolve. I shall be leaving with them, Varian. Now that Anduin has been rescued and you've regained your throne and your true self, I must make arrangements regarding my brother's death and my own estates. With a firm handshake and an expression of gratitude, Varian replied, Then I thank you, Thargus, for your aid and for your friendship. If ever Stormwind can aid Anvilmar, you have but to ask. Nearby, Brol raised his hands, addressing the lingering menace. There is yet one bit of unfinished business before us. This evil fire and lava, the enemies of all that is green and growing, still want to be born. Arise, you roots. His voice thundered as massive roots burst from the ground. Roil the living earth and seal the opening. Destroy the dragon's unhitched progeny. The roots surged forward, smothering the eggs and ensuring Onyxia's brood would never rise. "'Tis done," Brol announced with a finality as the group turned to leave. Their journey led them through Dustwallow Marsh, the air humid and heavy. Varian, Jaina, and Anduin rode atop their mounts, while Valeera rested on Brol's back in his cheetah form. Ahead, a group of orcs marched in the distance, catching Anduin's attention. "Father, Jaina, look! Orcs!" Anduin exclaimed. "Leave your sword in its scarab, Varian," Jaina said, casting a sidelong glance at him. "As humans, we are as much guests on Kalimdor as the orcs are." Anduin, his curiosity piqued, observed the orcs closely. "I saw a captured orc when I was very young, Jaina. That orc looked sad, but these guys seem cool. Look how the kids are staring. Awesome. I bet they haven't seen many humans either." Jaina nodded thoughtfully. "That's likely. The orcs' new homeland is in the desert, up north in Durotar. I've made an alliance with their war chief, Thrall. In fact," she hesitated, gauging Varian's mood. "Varian, we could reschedule your summit with Thrall. The one Onyxia's machinations interrupted so many months ago." Varian's expression darkened. "Why bother, Jaina? What would be the point? The orcs burned Stormwind Keep and overran my country. I saw an orc assassin, a betrayer who pretended to be my father's friend, standing over his corpse. I didn't trust them from the beginning. I'm not going to start now." Jaina's tone grew more insistent. "The demons of the Burning Legion exploited the orcs and tricked them into invading Azeroth. It ended up destroying their world, just as the demons have tried for ages to twist and destroy us. They are the true enemies of both humans and orcs. I have trusted Thrall with my life. He thinks deeply, and he cares about his people. He wants to lead them to peace." Anduin leaned forward eagerly. "Meeting Thrall would be great, Dad. From what I've heard, he's extraordinary, and isn't establishing peace something a king should do, if he can?" Varian's voice sharpened. "You mean drag his people into peace, whether they want it or not. There's no longer outright war between orcs and humans, Anduin. What more can Thrall wish?" "If you talk to him, maybe you'll find out," Anduin countered with a grin. Valeera joined the discussion, her tone light yet pointed. "A meeting would also be about what you want, Varian. And isn't it wise for a king to know his enemies, real or otherwise?" Varian sighed, recognizing he was outnumbered. "All right. I can see I'm outnumbered here. I'll talk to him. To please Anduin, and because you ask it, Jaina." "And because Valeera's right," Anduin said with a grin. He turned to Anduin with a wry smile. "Don't make me regret rescuing you, son. I don't expect anything to come of such meeting. Still." He looked at Valeera and Brol. "Valeera, I offer you and Brol, formally, a permanent place at Stormwind." Anduin's eyes lit up. "Do it, Valeera! You could be bodyguards and advisors, and teach me how to throw daggers, and you'd tell Father and me the truth, even when we don't want to hear it. It's one of those things kings need most." Valeera's face brightened. "Of course we'll do it! Oh, Brol, isn't that wonderful?" Brol let out a low growl, unimpressed in his travel form. "Don't be such a grouch," Valeera teased. "I haven't had a home since I was younger than Anduin. I'll finally belong." After their journey through the marsh, the group finally arrived back at Theramore Keep, where they were greeted by Aegwynn. Jaina wasted no time explaining her intentions. "I will travel to meet with Thrall and discuss the possibility of a summit with King Varian to negotiate terms," she stated firmly. With a wave of her hand, Jaina cast her teleportation spell and disappeared, leaving the rest of the group to rest and recuperate at Theramore. For now, the weary travelers would take this brief respite, gathering strength for the challenges still to come. Before settling in for the night, the group gathered for a quiet meeting. Early the next morning, a sharp cry pierced the air, waking Valeera. She rushed to Brol's side, finding him tossing and turning in his sleep. "Where are you? I can't see you. Lost!" Brol called out, his voice thick with distress. Valeera's hand touched his forehead, relief flooding her as she realized it was just a nightmare. Brol, what is it? What's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling, but her words couldn't reach him. In desperation, she grabbed a bucket of water and splashed it onto his face. The druid's eyes snapped open as he shifted instinctively into his bear form, letting out a thunderous roar. "Brol, no, it's me, Valeera! I couldn't wake you, I was worried you were sick or..." She stammered, backing away. Realizing what had happened, Brol forced himself to calm down, shifting back to his usual form. "And this is how blood elves awaken their sick?" He teased with a slight grin. "A bucket of water to their head?" Valeera exhaled, her composure returning. "Or trapped in the Emerald Dream. I didn't know what else to do." Brol nodded, his voice softening. "Your instinct was good. I might quarrel with your method, though. I've learned there is trouble in Darnassus. Vandrel Staghelm has summoned me home." Valeera's brows furrowed. "Oh, when do we leave?" "We don't," Brol replied gently. "Think, Valeera. Our peoples are not friends. Even if they were, you'd be bored to death at a formal druidic gathering. Your place is here, beside Varian and Anduin." Valeera folded her arms. "You know, blood elves aren't usually friends with humans either." "Ah, but we both know there's nothing usual about King Varian. Or his son. Something tells me Anduin may need you," Brol said, a knowing smile touching his lips. As the sun rose, Brol prepared to leave. "I'm sorry, Varian, that I'll miss your summit with Thrall." Varian raised a brow. "Right. If I didn't know better, I'd think you made up Vandrel's summon just to get out of it. I'll miss your company, my friend, but nothing will come of this meeting but a long, meaningless blather." Brol glanced at Valeera. "And Valeera?" Varian smiled. "I'll keep her safe until you return." "Like I can't keep myself safe," Valeera retorted. Brol's expression grew serious. "You understand, Valeera, this problem is serious. I may be gone for a while. Just don't do anything rash while I'm away." Valeera rolled her eyes, but softened. "Me? You're the one who's traipsing off." "No, all right, I hear you. I'll be careful, if you promise to be careful too." Varian spoke reassuringly. "Until you return and beyond, Brol, Valeera has a home at Stormwind." Brol grinned faintly. "Now all I have to worry about is whether your kingdom will survive Valeera." Shifting into his flight form, he spread his wings to leave. Anduin watched in awe. "I've seen Brol shift shapes before, but it's always awesome, isn't it?" "That it is, son," Varian replied with a smile. Valeera's voice cracked as she called after Brol. "Go on, Brol. I'll be fine. I'll see you when you get back." Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to hold them in. "Valeera, what's wrong?" Anduin asked gently, placing a hand on her arm. "Nothing. Everything. I just have this awful feeling I might never see him again. He wouldn't tell me, but I think what he needs to do is dangerous, and sometimes people don't survive," she said, her voice breaking. Varian's voice was firm but kind. "Brol will, no matter what happens. He's too tough to kill. Now dry your eyes. It's time we went inside to prepare for this evening's summit." Later that night, Valeera sought solitude atop the wall, hoping the cool air would soothe her heart. "You miss him already," a voice said behind her. She turned to see Egwin approaching. "Brol has been father and teacher, brother and friend in one unlikely being. But in your life, you've seen centuries of loss. My sadness must seem trivial to you, Egwin," Valeera said, leaning against the wall. Egwin's tone softened. "At one time it would have, but no more. Sorrow is the way of the world, child. I knew your ancestor Relfthra, an ancient high elf mage and a valued member of an order I once belonged to." Valeera's eyes widened. "The Council of Tirisfal? I know. I found some secret records back when I was a child. An order of sorcerers founded by the High Elves to protect Azeroth from the demon invaders. When I was small, I wanted to grow up to be just like him." Egwin chuckled. "Relfthra disapproved of me. He believed I was reckless. Really, I was an arrogant brat. But Relfthra was such a stick in the mud. At any rate, the council is no more, shattered by the passage of time. And trickery." Valeera's voice wavered. "I don't have his gift." "You have your own talent, Valeera, as your ability to ferret out the council's secret shows. But you also have your burdens. Now that Brol is gone, you must take even greater care. There are dark forces in the world and a demon who has tasted your soul," Egwin said. Valeera's gaze hardened. I know. I've learned the true cost of dark magic, and I have no further desire to partake of it. Truly, Aegwyn, you don't have to worry. Aegwyn gave her a faint smile before turning away, leaving Valeera to the solace of the night. The rain fell in torrents over Theramore's docks, churning up puddles and wetting the wooden planks as Thrall and his group arrived. Garrosh, unimpressed by the weather, eyed the storm with clear disapproval. An inauspicious start to your summit, he muttered. Thrall, unbothered by the downpour, led his orcs forward. This is merely a storm, Garrosh, not some omen of disaster, he replied. There was a practiced calm in his tone, as though no amount of rain could dampen his resolve. Jaina Proudmoore waited on the docks, her robes quickly soaking in the downpour, as Valeera, Varian, and Anduin approached with a small contingent of guards not far behind. Thrall, I'm glad you've come. Though I'm amazed you can walk for bearing the weight of so many weapons, she teased, offering a polite smile. What point in having a ceremonial laying down of arms, Jaina, if there are no arms to lay down? Thrall quipped, taking her hand in a brief friendly shake. Jaina's gaze drifted to the heavily armed guards behind him. And you've brought Kor'kron bodyguards? For demonstration purposes only. Once the ceremony is complete, they'll return to Orgrimmar. A show of force never goes amiss, as you well know. She nodded knowingly. You and Varian think much alike. His crew is also bristling with blades. It seems we've already found one thing on which you can agree. Gesturing behind her, she continued. Thrall, War Chief of the Horde, may I present Varian Wrynn, King of Stormwind. I've invited you here to peacefully discuss your differences with an eye toward your mutual gain. It is now time to lay down our weapons and enter Theramore Keep. Nearby, Anduin's eyes were wide as he took in the orc's imposing stature. Wow, orcs are really big, he said, sounding more fascinated than frightened. Father, Lord Thrall, for the duration of our summit, peace, Anduin declared, setting aside several of his weapons. Ha, it seems there is a diplomat amongst us after all. With a faint grin, Thrall knelt and placed his own arms on the ground. What is your name, my young diplomat? I am Anduin, my lord, son of Varian Wrynn, King of Stormwind. Thrall inclined his head respectfully. Then lead on, Anduin, son of Varian Wrynn, and we will follow. Seizing the moment, Jaina spoke to the assembled delegates. My lords, trusted guards will carry your weapons out of the rain and into the armory where they will be well cared for. Now come inside, the feast is waiting. Before she joined the rest, Valeera paused to whisper to a fur-clad orc. Fate is laughing at us, Rhaegar. Rhaegar's lip curled with a faint smile. Let us hope our leaders are as easily amused. Anduin, following closely, overheard. You whispered to the big orc with the fur headdress. Who is he? Valeera cast him a sidelong glance. His name is Rhaegar Earthfury. He owned your father and me when we were gladiators. Gladiators? Cool! Wait, he owned my father? Anduin's curiosity flared. Long story. It didn't last. Tell you later. Inside Theramore Keep, the rain's roar faded, replaced by the murmur of the summit. Thrall soon learned that Varian had previously missed a meeting after being kidnapped and losing his memories. At this, Rhaegar chimed in. It is clear, Valeera, that you and Logosh have come up in the world. While your winnings made me rich when Logosh... Valeera, quickly turning to Anduin, said, That was the name your father won in the arena, Anduin. Rhaegar continued. And Brol escaped, I realized my heart was with them, instead of the profit I could have made from their service. At that moment, I knew I had my fill of the Crimson Ring. I chose instead to offer my services to Thrall, Rhaegar explained. Valeera eyed him skeptically. You let them escape, but you sold me. Why? Rhaegar drew a breath as though recalling difficult choices. Have you already forgotten? You and Brol fought constantly. Then Helka offered a fortune for you and offered you leadership of her group. A role you were well suited for. It was a kind of advancement. But I see you too chose a new career path. Where is Brol? The regret in Varian's voice was evident. The champions you created stayed together. He and Valeera helped me kill the dragon Onyxia. Now he's returned to Teldrassil on urgent business. Thrall listened with interest. I too was once a gladiator, he revealed, surprising some. In my youth by one of King Tyrannus' subjects in Lordaeron. I too escaped and became a ruler of my people. We have that in common. I imagine we also share a dislike of slavery. Varian's gaze flicked toward Thrall. Slavery is wrong. But Brol, Valeera, and I did learn to fight as a team. It was us against the world. Even when you didn't know your true identity, your body had not forgotten how to fight, Rhaegar added, recalling their shared past in the arena. Valeera smiled at a memory. Remember the time Spark Eye's gladiators jumped us? They saw you refuse to fight for entertainment and thought we'd be easy. You mostly finished them. Then Rhaegar sicked his master trainer, Haiku Steeledge, on us, and you aced him too. A glimmer of pride entered Rhaegar's eyes. Logosh would not fight to entertain others, but he would fight to protect you and Brol. I should have known then that he was no nameless warrior, but a king. Varian's voice grew more resolute. A gladiator's life is simple. You win and live, or you lose and die. A king's life is more complex. The only truth for a king is that there are no easy answers. I agree, Varian, Jaina interjected, her tone thoughtful. A good ruler considers the welfare of his people beyond his own desires. Like you, Thrall, wishing the orcs had not been lured into Azeroth and their homeworld had not been shattered, but that is the reality we must now deal with. Thrall sighed. There's no going back for us. It would be good if there was some way to ease tensions between our people. We orcs have found a homeland on Kalimdor, across the sea from the Eastern Kingdoms, but we lack certain resources. We are engaged in constant conflict with the Night Elves over the felling of trees for timber. You can only build so much out of sand and mud. Varian considered this. Our merchants might be glad to trade their timber. What can we offer in return? We have large copper deposits near Orgrimmar, and exotic hides from creatures that roam the barrens, Thrall replied. Garrosh chimed in, obviously not liking this. Bah, a discussion fit for merchants. Why should we orcs make concessions when we have the strength to take what we want? Anduin, mustering his courage, spoke up. But sir, why waste your warriors and resources in battle when a few words will bring you greater profit? Well said, young prince, Thrall noted approvingly. With that, the summit was brought to an early close. As everyone stepped outside to depart, Thrall walked alongside Varian, while Anduin led the way. Looking to the clearing skies, Varian remarked, At least the rain has stopped. Then he glanced at Thrall. I just received word of simultaneous scourge attacks on South Shore and Goldshire in Stormwind. Thrall frowned. Yes, the Lich King has stirred, and now begins a new campaign against the living. I've already sent a few ships to Northrend. It would be good to have some level of cooperation between our peoples before we face this common enemy. Neither of us wants to fight a war on two fronts. A little ways off, Valeera caught up to Rhaegar before he left. I can't believe it. They're actually getting along. Garrosh doesn't like it, Rhaegar observed. He isn't happy with what he sees here. Garrosh isn't a shaman but a warrior. He covets the very thing that makes Theramore impregnable. Valeera gave a small laugh. It would be madness to attack this place. I have had my fill of battle, but Garrosh is young. He believes only the fiercest thrive, and that my liaison with humans would be a sign of weakness. Suddenly, Valeera caught movement overhead. Her eyes widened. Varian, Thrall, above you, look out! She shouted, barreling forward to shove Varian aside. A wyvern's rider slashed at her as she passed, opening a shallow wound in her side. You okay? Varian asked her. Minor flesh wound. I won't sit down for a week. She hissed through clenched teeth. Varian quickly assessed the threat. Guard Anduin, he barked. With my life. Valeera snapped back, taking a position at the prince's side. Who are these assassins? More daggers whistled through the air, aimed at Rhaegar. He planted a totem, the projectile thunking harmlessly into it. Amid the storm of wyverns and bats, Thrall summoned the elements to shield himself. Suddenly, an orc dove in behind Varian, hoping for a quick kill. But Varian, relying on the reflexes he'd honed in gladiatorial combat, tackled the attacker, ending his life with swift efficiency. You said this meeting would be uneventful, Valeera called over the commotion, ensuring Anduin remained safe. Apparently I was wrong, Varian muttered, parrying a Tauren's axe with lethal precision. Not far away, Thrall contended with an onslaught of trolls, orcs, Tauren, and even humans among the assassins. Human treachery! Garrosh roared, fury evident in his eyes. Valeera, cutting down another foe, shot back. Have you no eyes, Garrosh? There are also plenty of Tauren, orcs, and trolls. Hired by the human king to bring death to our own, Garrosh snarled. That was when Varian caught a glimpse of a face he recognized. Garona. he shouted, swinging his mace only to realize Thrall was in the path of his blow. The war chief deftly dodged, countering with his axe. Who? The orc assassin who offered friendship, then slew my father in cold blood. Your assassin, Varian growled, voice thick with rage. Mine? Thrall asked, clearly taken back. Did you think I wouldn't recognize her? I was a fool to think the great Thrall might be different, Varian spat. For now, it's clear that treachery remains the orc's main tool of diplomacy. From the moment Garona first appeared, Varian's wrath was evident. Have you so little confidence of your people, Thrall, that you need an orc assassin to slay me? He demanded, spotting Garona poised to throw a dagger. In a fluid motion, she hurled it through the air, only for Varian to catch it deftly. A clumsy one who hands me a weapon. That will bring about her downfall. Slicing at the wyvern that she rode upon, bringing it crashing down. Garona leapt free, staring daggers at the king. Clumsy, am I? Garona hissed. Thrall does not hire assassins, King Varian, the war chief insisted, his gaze darting about. I do my own killing, and look around you. She may be the least of our problems. Ogres and other assassins pressed in from all sides. Amidst the chaos, Anduin hefted a rifle, aiming at an oncoming foe. Valeera, wrestling with a Tauren nearby, shouted, Watch out for the... But before she could finish, the gun's recoil sent Anduin sprawling. Dazed, he looked up to see a bat-riding assassin bearing down, magic crackling in her hands. Here's a blast for you, young prince, the undead woman snarled. No! Valeera cried, struggling to reach him. But Rhaegar interceded with his shamanic shield, blocking the deadly spell. Saving the young prince with him breathing a sigh of relief, and Valeera thanking Rhaegar for the save. Rhaegar turned to Valeera. Your skill has grown since I last saw you fight, Valeera. Stelling you was a mistake. He kept his shield raised. The boy's resourceful, Valeera, but guns can't be trusted. Teach him to throw a blade. Valeera exhaled, grateful. I hear you, Rhaegar. Next on the agenda. She turned her attention back to defending Anduin. Suddenly, Thrall spotted a flash of familiar magic. Jaina, about time you teleported into the fray, he shouted, swinging his axe at an attacker. From across the battlefield, a human assassin roared. Die, Thrall, your time is over. As she prepared to launch a fiery blast, Jaina raised a shield between them. Thought I'd even the odds a bit, old friend. I'll face the undead witch while you confront the others. Assassins, but a bizarre coalition. On the other side of the melee, Varian charged Garona, a determined snarl on his lips. Father trusted you. I know better. You won't find me such an easy target. His mace whistled through the air, aiming for a decisive blow. But a lightning bolt tore down from the sky before he could land it, and a young orc-like figure cried out, Mother! Garona's eyes widened. You know? Curses! I feared someday this might happen. Medan, go back, keep away. There's nothing you can... Behind you! Medan shouted. She rolled aside just in time, avoiding a lethal strike from Varian's mace. Nearby, Valeera found herself cornered by an orc and a troll. Slay the elf. I'll kill the princeling, the orc commanded. Valeera braced herself. Anduin, run! I can't stop them both. But another voice intervened. No! Medan rushed in, driving his axe into the orc's skull. The creature collapsed instantly. Who are... Why? Anduin stammered. These are my mother's foes as much as they are yours, Medan replied. And though you have many enemies, you're just a child. I'm as old as you, nearly. Wait, the assassin's your mother? But you're not an orc, are you? Anduin asked, startled. Overhead, an undead woman on a bat loomed, hurling firebolts. Medan managed to fend off a Tauren, but as he turned, he glimpsed Varian barreling toward Garona, poised for a killing blow. Leave my mother alone. She's under a spell, can't you see? He pleaded, leaping between them. Varian stared daggers at Medan. Out of the way, lad. Anduin interjected desperately. Father, spare him! He's hurt and he saved me! Grim-faced, Varian growled. I've been no child killer, but for Garona's cub, I could make an exception. But before he could act, the undead woman swooped down, snatching Medan away and calling off the assault. The assassins retreated, leaving Garona behind, tears gathering in her eyes. Valeera rushed to Varian's side. It makes no sense, Varian. Why would the undead witch abandon the assassin, but take her son? No matter, Garrosh spat. The assassin will not live for long. He raised his weapon, intent on striking Garona. Stay your hand, Jaina demanded, freezing Garrosh in place. The attack is over, the enemy is vanquished, and I'm still the ruler of Theramore. Garona is my prisoner. Guards, take her to the dungeon and prepare her for questioning. A wise move. Varian snapped back. Garrosh means to dispatch her before she implicates his master. Clearly, these orcs are in league with my father's murderer. For that offense, human, you will die, Garrosh roared, lunging at Varian. Thrall moved to intervene. You forget yourself, Garrosh. Despite this carnage and the insult given to our people, there is still a truce. Lower your weapon, now! His gaze flicked to Varian. Battle rage is still on you and others. None of you are thinking clearly. We too were attacked. Varian narrowed his eyes. The prisoner is the orc assassin Garona who murdered my father. I claim her for public execution at Stormwind. Thrall's jaw tightened. I suppose we all look alike to you. Perhaps I was wrong to expect better from a human. Look again and pay attention this time. The female is but a half-orc, at best. Full or half, an orc is an orc. None of your blood can be trusted. Varian's voice thundered with conviction. Jaina stepped between them, determined to prevent further bloodshed. Back off, both of you. Whatever her birth, for some unknown reason, Garona has been enscrolled and abandoned here. Until we know the reasons, she is my prisoner and will remain here at Theramore. Garrosh bristled. The guilt of you humans is obvious. You protect the prisoner. You lured Thrall into a situation where he's unarmed and threatened. Stormwind is behind this, with Theramore as their ally. Varian's tone was dangerously low. Had I planned this attack, you orcs would already be lying dead on the parapets. I'll question her myself. Before I leave for Stormwind, I will get to the bottom of this. He stalked off, leaving the tension crackling like distant thunder. Thrall wouldn't, Rhaegar murmured to Valeera. She nodded. Neither would Varian, nor Jaina either, she said grimly. Who then? Anduin wondered, eyes full of questions. They moved away, allowing Thrall and Rhaegar to speak in hushed tones. Deep beneath Theramore's keep, Garona was shackled to a wall, arms spread and legs bound. Her face a mask of confusion and anger. Varian, flanked by Jaina, stood before her. Before you die, I want the truth. Varian's voice cut through the dungeon gloom. Who hired you to kill me, to orphan my son as I was orphaned? Hired me? No one. My idea. Wasn't it? Garona's reply was laced with uncertainty, as though pieces of her memory slipped through her grasp. Orphaned? No. Wouldn't be orphaned. Kill the king, kill the prince. Kill my son? Varian's fury trembled at the edge of control. He glanced at Anduin, who stood by Valeera. Had you killed my father in cold blood? A prick of the blade and he's gone, Garona murmured. Good man. So easy. No calling him back. Why? Why did I? She sounded more lost than defiant. Jaina interposed herself. Keep away from her, Varian. I repeat, she is my prisoner, and clearly she's enscrolled. A magical enslavement that reaches far and deep. You, of all people, know what that is like. Varian seethed but relented. Question Garona, then, while I prepare to face the scourge, learn what you can. Then give her to me for execution. She has targeted my son, and enscroll or not, I will kill her as surely as I killed the dragon Onyxia. He stormed out, heading toward his awaiting zeppelin. Later, as Valeera gave Anduin lessons in dagger throwing, they overheard two guards escorting Garona. I heard Lady Proudmoore couldn't remove the spell, or not so easy. Real hard to get at its source, one guard muttered. She was fighting it. Our lady thinks it forbids the orcs' cooperation. Enforcing it might kill her. Kill her then, I say, the other snorted. Save King Varian the trouble. The Blood Elf pretends to serve King Varian, but all of them are traitors. He cast a glance at Valeera. A third guard chimed in. There were plenty of horde among the attackers. Bet she's in league with them. With a flick of her wrist, Valeera hurled a dagger at the guards, lodging it in a polearm inches from their faces. If you don't want to lose your nose, human, you'll keep it out of my business. Striding toward them, she glared. There were humans too among the attackers. Does that make you responsible? Should I kill you now? I am neither horde nor alliance. What has either faction ever done for me? She ripped the dagger free, shattering the polearm shaft. My loyalties are personal, to King Varian and to his son. Behind her, Garona, chains rattling, spoke up. My loyalties were personal once. Yet I betrayed King Lane, a kind man, a good king. Why? And for what? Why his progeny? Why? I am no stranger to divided loyalties. I think that's also true of you. Valeera stiffened. Nothing is worse than betraying those you love. Just see where your divided loyalties have led you, and your son. Garona's expression faltered. She's right. Dan. Oh, gods and demon. Where is he? What's happening to him? Have I betrayed him too? Tell Jaina Proudmoore and your precious Varian. Save my son from the monster who stole him, and I will fight this enscrollment. Fight to tell you everything you say I know, even if I must die in the trying. But please, help me save my son. Soon after, Valeera found Varian, Anduin at his side. She recounted Garona's plea, and then Garona said she'd try and fight past the blocks on her mind if we'd go after the boy, Medina. I want to stay here, Varian, and search for him. Varian regarded her coldly. You have such sympathy for that murderer? I am not blinded by the need for vengeance, my lord, Valeera replied firmly. He sighed, anger faded to a wearied resolve. For your safety and Anduin's, we need to know what's going on and who's behind the attack. Garona holds the key. Anduin stepped in. Medina wasn't on the attacker's side, father. He just wanted to protect his mother. His mother killed your grandfather. Varian shot back, frustration palpable. And her son saved my life. I think had we met in a different way, we might have been friends. Varian studied Anduin's face, then nodded. Your words are harsh but true, Valeera. Stay then, help question Garona, learn the truth. Rescue the boy. I still think orcs are behind the attack. If not Thrall, then Garrosh, who seems to be among the worst of his bloodthirsty, treacherous kind. He boarded his ship, Anduin following. Jaina approached, concern etched on her face. Forget Garona, Varian, at least for now. The Scourge pose a far larger threat. Twice, I've come to Theramore to parley at a summit, and twice I've been attacked. Varian said sternly. I'll not return for a third parley. But I will come back for my father's murderer. And nobody, not even you, Jaina, will save Garona from the punishment she deserves. With that, he sailed away, leaving Valeera behind to piece together the conspiracy that threatened not just Stormwind or Theramore, but the fate of an innocent boy caught in the crossfire of an ancient grudge and insidious magic. And that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you did enjoy. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.